Hello everyone. I hope you are excited because after a week I bring you Corn Maze Part 3, the finale of the whole thing. Or maybe not. Stick to the end. I have something to say about this in the outro. As always, special thanks to my lovely patrons and all of you who subscribe and watch my videos. You're keeping this channel alive and going. Thank you very much, and I hope you will enjoy this one. The longer they walked around the field, the more convinced Hayato was that he didn't want to see corn for the rest of his life. The maze stretched over a considerable portion of land already, but that was nothing against the actual field. And they were supposed to go through all that, looking for something that could help them. Truly, they were looking for a needle in a haystack. How is this even possible? He's not a ghost. He had to leave some tracks behind, right? Especially if he dragged Ty with him. Shaking his head in despair, Sammy raked his fingers through his hair, his expression and motions becoming more and more agitated. I don't know. Maybe we are looking at the wrong place, or he just knows how to avoid leaving a trail. He kicked a dried ball of soil. And this fucking dirt isn't helping either. Aito clenched his jaw, contemplating if he should try to calm Sammy down or if that would cause more damage to his nerves. He settled for a silent shoulder squeeze, feeling him sagging a bit under the touch. I'm sure we will find something soon. We have to. Unless we missed some UFO, there has to be something. He paused. Wait, I think you might have a point. With? When you said we are looking at the wrong place. Huh? Think about it. If we can't find anything where we found the phone, then we have to take it from a different angle. Sammy didn't seem to follow, the confusion mixed with already present worry making him look even more desperate than so far. Hayato inwardly cursed his explaining skills and tugged on Sammy's hand to turn him towards the field. We can't see Crab here, and it's just two of us on the whole field. But we already have something, right? I highly doubt the guy, if he really took Ty, would stay with him in the maze. Too many people around. Going towards the parking lot would be stupid and risky for the same reason. So why don't we go out of the field and search around the edges for car tracks or something like that? We don't have many other options anyway. The tension didn't leave Sammy's posture, but his face seemed to brighten with clarity for a brief second before dimming with worry again. Okay, I guess it's worth a try as anything else. Should we split? I think that's for the best. More ground covered. But keep the phone close, okay? Sammy nodded, wiggling the phone in his hand, and then dove into the corn. Hayato watched him for a while before the motion disappeared, the only thing remaining being the slowly receding rustling. Fine, let's get this done. He rushed through the field to where he supposed was one of the edges, carrying on with the silent prayer he kept reciting over and over in his head since their search began. He wasn't the one to ask gods for favors, but this wasn't about him. Come on, Kami-sama, he suffered enough already, let him be alright. Please. A quick check of a map told him he was on the edge right next to the maze entrance area, which was an ideal starting point. He glanced over to the parking lot, but couldn't see any police cars parked there yet. They are taking their sweet time for a potential kidnapping. He pushed the sour frustration down deep into his soul and forced his mind to focus on the task at hand. If the police wasn't going to help in time, it was up to him and Sammy to do everything in their power to get Taichi back. However, before he even managed to make it a few meters along the side of the field, his phone rang, startling him. For a second, the hope of seeing Taichi's name on the screen spiked up in his chest, only to get immediately crushed when he read Sammy's contact name. Still, he quickly picked up, his heartbeat speeding up. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. But can you come to me? I might have found something. Hayato was sure he had never run this fast in his entire life. He still kept his eyes on the ground, both to keep himself from spraining his ankle in some hole, and just in case SemiShiraKawaGata wouldn't turn out to be what they were looking for. The last thing he wanted was to miss some clues because he didn't pay attention. But nothing seemed out of the ordinary. There were no footsteps, vehicle tracks, or even broken corn stalks, which was equally good news as bad. He only slowed down when he spotted Semi crouched by the ground as if looking for or at something. What do you have? Semi motioned to the ground. I don't know what it is, but it looks too weird to be here naturally. Hayato squatted next to him, and sure enough, spotted two almost linear lines in the dirt. Under normal circumstances, he probably wouldn't think twice about them. However, he had seen similar tracks enough on the TV to recognize marks left by someone dragging something over the ground. Something or someone. Ice cold claws dug into his heart, stopping it for a beat. Do these run towards the field or away? Semi shook his head, his shoulders tense. No idea, I'm not a tracker. It might not even be anything related to Tai Chi. I don't know, it's just weird. But it's also the only clue we have. He stood up and followed the marks with his gaze when he paused, spotting a strange, somewhat run-down building on the horizon. He nudged Semi's side. Looks like it leads there. Or from there. Either way, let's see what it is. We have nothing to lose at this point. It wasn't entirely true, Hayato knew. There was a lot they could lose. Just thinking about the worst possibility, them losing time with some drag marks while they were losing Taichi somewhere else, sent chills down his spine. But at the same time, his instincts never left him in a pinch. And right now, his instincts were telling him that the house could give them the answers they needed. Okay, let's try it then. Hopefully we can at least ask for help if someone lives there. Hayato couldn't but agree. The closer they got, the clearer it was the house was more a shack than an actual house. If it was under any other circumstances, Hayato would be excited about the possible adventure they could have in a creepy old shack. Like this, however, it only served to strain his nerves even more. And if he could judge by the way Semi kept clenching his wrist, he wasn't the only one unnerved by it. Look at this. It looks like no one lived here for at least 10 years. We will be lucky if it's not abandoned. I think we will be lucky if we don't find a mass grave here or something. Hayato shivered, immediately forbidding himself from following that train of thought further. He would know if Taichi wasn't alive anymore. He was sure of it. Perhaps it was his incore romantic and soulmates believing heart speaking, but he refused to think anything else. Taking a deep breath to chase the dark thoughts away, he stopped them a bit aside from the house to take a better look around. On the second glance, he realized it wasn't a single house in front of them, but in fact a set of 3 buildings glued together, hidden behind the trees. One was definitely a building made for living, while the other 2 looked more like barns of some kind. So, what do we think? Semi pressed his lips together before motioning towards the house, keeping his voice as low as Hayato did, though if on purpose or just because of the weird atmosphere was anyone's guess. Let's knock. If we don't find anyone, I guess we can search this place. Despite the strange chills, Hayato nodded and knocked a few times on the door, barely hiding his disgust when his hand touched the wet, rotting wood. This place is a ruin through and through. For a long while, there was no sound coming from the house or anywhere else. The more Hayato jumped when several heavy thumbs sounded from the inside, and then the door flew open, almost hitting him in the face. A man stood in front of them, barely visible in the dark hallway thanks to the black coat of sorts. A deep scowl sat on his face, and a pair of piercing eyes watching them from under the brim of a weird hat. Hayato was the first to shake off the shock. He shivered under the cold glare, and instinctively positioned himself to stand in front of Semi before speaking. Hello. I'm sorry we are bothering you, but we are looking for someone, and we wanted to ask if... No one's here except for me. Feeling the hair standing at the back of his neck at the sound of the man's voice, Hayato stammered a bit before collecting himself again. Oh, well, could you at least tell us if you've seen... Haven't seen anything. Now get off my land. I want no trespassers here. But... He didn't get further before the door was slammed into his face, the echo rattling with his core. Hey, I wasn't done talking! He felt Semi tugging on his sleeve and followed him a bit aside, resisting the urge to hammer on the door again with his fist to get something more out of the weird guy. For now, at least. Don't tempt luck. Why? I'm not buying anything he said. I bet he knows much more. Maybe, but it wouldn't surprise me if he had a rifle hanging somewhere. I don't want to catch a bullet in the forehead. Hayato gritted his teeth. Even if it was for Tai's safety? Stop that. You know I would do anything to get him back, but us getting shot won't help him. Hayato inhaled sharply, ready to argue further, but then let out just a shaky breath, clenching his fists in frustration. His hunch was right. He was sure it was. The guy dismissed them too fast to be innocent. He knew that was the case. If Semi wasn't here, he would gladly knock that stupid head off the guy's head before knocking some information from him, grab him by that weird coat and... He froze, turning swiftly back to the house. Shit, he definitely knows more. That's the guy who was watching Tai before. Huh? Yeah, remember? Looked like he just left the movie set. It's definitely him. He hissed through his gritted teeth, fury bubbling in his chest. No wonder this place feels so weird. We have to take a look around here. Semi stopped him before he managed to make a single step. What do you want to do? We can't just barge in there because we have a suspicion. Why not? It's a valid suspicion. I know, but... A hollow bang reached their ears, pausing Semi mid-sentence. They waited for a bit in silence, and sure enough, 2 more bangs echoed around them after a few seconds. You heard that too, right? Yeah. Might be an animal though. I don't see anything suggesting he has any animals. Let's go. Semi stopped him again, with more urgency in his grip and voice this time. Wait, are you crazy? I bet he's watching us through the blinds to see what we do, and you want to just march around here like there's not a potential psychopath behind this wall. So what are you suggesting? We leave and wait for ages before the police get here with all the paperwork? It might be late by then. Another, though much weaker hollow bang echoed around as if to support Hayato's words. He gripped Semi's biceps, barely holding back to not squeeze too much. We can't just leave. He might have sounded really desperate, but that didn't matter. They couldn't just leave. Not when there was a chance that he was somewhere close. They couldn't do that to him, no matter the potential danger. Semi, albeit he hesitated, was thinking the same. He could see it in his eyes. But while he appreciated Semi's care for their well-being right now, as long as one of them was taken away from them, everything else had to be put aside. Eita. Okay, fine. Where did it come from? Somewhere from that part, I think. He pointed towards the two barn-like buildings. Alright, let's take it from the back so he thinks we left. You take the one on the right, I take the left. On it. They quickly made their way away from the house, stopping by the forest when they were almost sure the guy couldn't see them from the windows. Then they turned into the forest and headed back, a bit more carefully this time, worried about the noise. No words were exchanged when the houses came into their field of vision again, nor when they split to head to their respective goals. Hayato carefully slid around the back wall, looking for a window or any other opening he could use to get inside. But the wall was a solid piece, forcing him to round the corner and hope for the best. Who doesn't build windows into their barn? Though on a closer look, he realized that wasn't right either. The difference between the two kinds of bricks was barely visible in the shadows, but it was there, suggesting the windows were there at some point. Now though, they were mured. He rather didn't want to know why. Hold on, Tai. One of us is coming for you, I promise. He continued with his search, but worryingly, the only available entry point except for the windows high above his head he had no way to reach seemed to be the door at the front, facing the house. Biting his lip uncertainly, he was about to book it to the door and pray for it to be open, when he noticed a ladder laid a bit aside. How convenient. The inside of the barn was perhaps even darker than the guy's hallway. Had to let his eyes get used to it before he pulled himself up into the window, looking for a place where he could land without breaking his legs. He silently thanked the years of training he got as a pro player when he slid down the wall and his feet hit the floor without much damage, except for the short arrow of pain running through his legs. But that was the last thing he cared about at that moment. Tai? He stilled when quiet rustling answered him, horror spiking in his mind for a second when he imagined he was getting busted. But it was quickly replaced by relief when his eyes fell on the crumpled form lying on the floor in the very far corner. Tai! Forgetting about everything else, he rushed to Taichi's side, his chest constricting when the usually shiny eyes looked at him with fear. A weak whimper escaped Taichi's mouth through the gag stuck deep between his jaws, and Hayato hissed instinctively when he spotted the rope cutting into his beloved's wrists and ankles. Shh. It's okay now. I've got you. He gently pushed the slightly damp hair out of Taichi's forehead, fury filling his chest when he realized it wasn't water or sweat that stuck Taichi's hair together. Fucker. Don't worry. I'll get you out of here soon, I promise. All he got in answer was a weak sigh before Taichi's head fell back on the floor. He cursed under his breath, moving to do something about the bounce. The situation was dire, and they had to work fast. Hold on, please. Help is on the way, I promise. You'll be fine. You'll be... His heart jumped in his chest when something heavy hit the door once, twice, and then the door burst open. I told you to get off my property! Hayato moved fast, gritting his teeth as he got up to shield Taichi with his own body. As if, you freak! A surprised yelp got caught in his throat, the pitchfork spikes barely missing piercing through his stomach. Fuck. He jumped back, forced to dodge again when the sharp iron swished uncomfortably close to his abdomen. The man against him growled, reminding Hayato of a feral dog. Except dogs didn't flail around with pitchforks. He risked a hurried look around, looking for anything he could use to defend them, but except for the piece of cloth he unbound from Taichi's mouth, he had nothing. Hands-on approach it is, then. Prepared for the possible pain, he pulled it forward. The man wavered when he slammed into him with his shoulder and his whole strength, but even that wasn't enough to give him much advantage. He growled through his clenched teeth and grabbed the man's wrist to pry the pitchfork out of his hands, occasionally landing a hit with his elbow or shoulder that seemed to do little to nothing. But he had to try. He had to fight. Not for him, for Taichi's safety. Then he got pushed back and aside, stumbling under the sheer brute force behind the shove, and barely managed to move out of the way of the spikes aimed at his chest. Which also meant he moved from standing between Taichi and danger. Desperate to regain his position, he threw himself at the man with his whole weight. However, before he could cause any damage, he was flung to the side, his legs betraying him and sending him to the ground. He looked up, only to find the pitchfork aiming at his face. Fuck. He closed his eyes and prepared for the pain, but then something swished behind the man's head, followed by a strange crack and a dull thud as the man's now limp form crumbled to Semi's feet. And stay there! He clenched the iron rod in his hand and jabbed into the man's side before he looked up, the previous burning fury shifting to worry. All good? Hayato chuckled, immediately regretting it when a sharp pain shot through his shoulder where the wooden pole hit him, and also through his side. In the little light coming in through the open door shone a slowly growing dark red stain on his now torn t-shirt. It's fine. It just scratched me. Seems like I can't dodge that well after all. He shook his head and rushed back to Taichi. Finding him watching them with eyes glossed over, he visibly struggled to keep open. His skin was cold to the touch too, which worried Hayato perhaps even more. Go Kenjiro to get here. He needs help. Semi nodded and fished out his phone, dialing numbers while Hayato made quick work of the bounce, gently shushing Taichi when he tried to speak. It's okay. Help is on the way, I promise. You are safe now. Kenji, did the police arrive yet? Great. Take them with you and get on my position. Yeah, we have him. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I know this part didn't end up as action-packed as I was saying, or at least not as much as I expected it to be, but hey, it's just unraveled the way it did, and I still think we got some action, and Taichi is fine. Or is he? So, question for you. Do I do an aftermath video, or are you content like this? It's up to you. Let me know. Also, don't worry if I sound a bit different in the intros and outros in contrast to the actual video. It's because I usually record the intros, outros later than the voiceover, and it's usually in the morning, so it sounds a bit different, but it's not that I'm unwell or something like that, so don't worry. If you have any requests or ideas, the request form is linked in the video description. See you next time!